Welcome guys on AWS Lambda training today. There are multiple trainings I'm going to add on my tutorial videos. Please subscribe my channel for more updated videos and more advanced cases that you would solve over the time in this training. Now first, I wanted to do a warm welcome in this AWS Lambda tutorial. Guys, if you're here, that is one thing is very clear. Either you are in the software industry and you're working as a software developer, maybe manager, or various roles in the software industry. Now, when you hear this term like, hey, there's a jargons going on AWS Lambda, people work on a cloud, you must be wondering, what is this? Why this is so much these days in talk, like people always talk in the software design proposals for this particular technology. Now, just try to understand a simple business use case. You will get to know why AWS Lambda is so much popular these days. It's not just AWS Lambda. There are other cloud vendors also who are like Google Cloud and Azure Cloud. They all provide their different flavor of same stuff. But as this topic is only on AWS, I'm going to cover only AWS Lambda in a very beginning session here. Now, like I said, just try to understand the business use case. The business use case is quite natural and obvious, which happens, and I believe it must be with all of you. Let's say you went to a shopping mall, you did some purchase out there, and you bought like a stuff of like let's say 10K or 20K, and same time you got a notification about your mobile phone saying, hey, if you come again, maybe within 24 hours or within 48 hours, I'll give you a discount of extra 1,000 rupees if you go purchase for again for 10,000 rupees. You know, that is a customized additional promotional offer that only came for you because potentially the business people understand you came today and you may come again for tomorrow or for some other reasons because you're more targeted customers for that particular shopping. Now, this this condition gives you, if you are a software developer, you need to think like this way. I got this message, so there is a software that works, and he captured my information. He understood my profile. Hey, I'm kind of bad of this kind of stuff, so he sent me the notification. There are multiple ways to design the software. Like, let's say you are going to design a new software. So you can think this software design in this way also. Like, you can define this software on AWS Lambda. And when you do a payment of first shopping during the end of payment processing, they will also call this Lambda function. What this Lambda function will do, they will send you a notification immediately saying, hey, go ahead and get this additional offer and enjoy more shopping, more benefits. I'm not saying it cannot be done by other ways, but this is one of the use cases. I'm just adding it here. If you go and talk and go and search and look on Google, they'll give you a lot of complex architecture, like I can show you here. But the all architecture does make sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but unless you understand the basic of what Lambda is, it's not good to dive into here and just puzzle your mind with all those different jargons and get confused. The simplicity is always a key of understanding, always a key for your implementation and development. Now, guys, try to understand or focus additional couple of minutes here. I do not want to keep a very lengthy videos and very huge videos because I want to build. I believe in like creating multiple videos of small topics and just understand this concept and goes along and come with me and work on this particular example, which I'll show you in just a moment. Like I said, this is one of the use case for the event that happened. Like you did the payment, you did the shopping, and you got extra notification of extra shopping with the vouchers in your mobile phone or maybe an email. So that is a software that can be delegated to a Lambda. Now, you will say, why Lambda here? Why can't I do the enter processing and the payment like I can have the same software do the processing of this part as well? Now, think in a scenario like this is an additional part that a particular processing is doing, and same time, if there are millions of users who is doing a online transaction, so that means the load is really high. There's a million of transaction out there which is going on across the globe. Like you can imagine for your Amazon shopping URL, if you go and Amazon cart, you there across the globe people keep on doing the payments and the multiple work, the millions of transaction per second that happens. So these are small stuff for promotional offers, for suggestions. if they keep on adding this in the regular software, that actually will consume the regular bandwidth. So what it will do, what they can offer, they normally do, they delegate this request to asynchronous call. And I hope you understand asynchronous call. There are other videos you can watch what is asynchronous call from my tutorial. But for now, just understand they delegate this request to a different piece of software that is an AWS Lambda sort of work. So you can imagine they delegate this to AWS Lambda, and the Lambda will take care sending all those information and promotions and other stuff that they wanted to send it to the customer. And like I said, if there are millions, then that means let's say in 1 minute they want to trigger 1 million requests. Deploying these softwares, infrastructures around the globe for a different reason is really a huge, huge, huge task. And to just do this heavy lifting, giving this to any cloud vendor makes your life easy, makes it more maintainable, makes more scalable. So you design a software which is more scalable, which is more robust and easy to function and calculate. That is the main aim and goal that you wanted to achieve. Very low pricing. So here is the main menu of AWS Lambda I wanted to talk about. So once you log into AWS console, I assume you all are software developers and engineers or maybe some other computer background. So AWS gives you an AWS account, like this is my account. And here you see if you type Lambda here, so this is a role that you see here, AWS Lambda. Here's a button like you see on the top. You can go and create a functions out here. And in the function, you see like I have other videos also, you see from the scratch and a blueprint and a container image. Because this is all a menu that the UI provides you, and you can go and create your functions with this. This function is nothing but a name on which a code will run on AWS ground. So here you can define your function's name. Let's say, like I shared, I just give an example of mall notifications. So I call it like mall, or maybe better purchase rather, because you made a purchase out there. So call it a purchase notification. Not if would be good, right? The smaller the better. And like I said, there are multiple languages it does support. So it can support a .NET, Go, Java, Python, Ruby, and all different versions that they have mentioned here. I'm showing example here in Python 3.8, and there are different architecture that it looks for. Like it says like ARM64 and x86-64. So these are different architecture also that you can define. I would say for now, leave this part, just make it the one which is selected as default. And the others are the advanced setting. But like I said, my fundamental principle is just to understand the business use case. Like I will give you example of shopping mall and try to understand what the overall look it does, and then we can take a deep dive. So I'm leaving the advanced settings here and just call a create functions. Now you see the spinning icon here, so that it means it is AWS is now creating in your Amazon account. I'm calling it. I'm from India, so I'm doing it from Mumbai account because that's nearer to me. And doing this stuff, they give you a new function which is in purchase notif, and that has layers. Is a one underneath here, and there's a one at trigger, at destination, there's throttle, then the ARN, and you see there's actions here, right? So let me give you these all detail one by one. So first, I'll show you what this function overview means. Like here in this one, this is a collapsible container. So this function overview, that names we defined as a purchase notif. Let's try to understand this. First, it is created just 27 seconds ago, like we see here. And for any resource, like created one of the resource on Amazon, it defines an ARN. Amazon, like for any service in Amazon, there's an ARN defined that uniquely defines the resources. Okay. Okay. So there are multiple uses that in the upcoming video I'll show you this also. But for now, just focus on the Lambda part. Now you saw the beauty is once you define on a UI on this Lambda, Amazon gives you a way in which you can define your code in the editor here. So any Python developer can understand because I chose this Lambda to be a Python specific. There's just a one function, not name it is the Lambda handler. It takes two parameters, event and context, and it has just returning a body saying that, hey, hello from Lambda. So Amazon gives you the flexibility, You can define your code here, or you can go and upload it from your zip file or from Amazon S3 location. Again, for simplicity, let's make this program very simple, and you can define your code here, and I'll show you how to deploy and test it out. So let's say this is hello from Lambda that you just did. Now, to execute this code right from the Amazon console, because you also need a way in which you can define whether it is correct or not. So you can define this test, one of the event here. You can call it test. And here I go for all this parameter, like you see the event parameter that it does accept, consume, and they call it save. Now just run this again. So you see, we ran a test event. It has a status code is 200, and there's a body is hello from the Lambda. So you see the test results here in the execution results. Now go back to this tab again, Lambda functions, and you change something. Hello from the Lambda training from Summit. Here we go. And you just see that changes not deployed. There's a new label that appeared here. It will appear only if there are new changes that came here. So you can go and deploy, hit the deploy, it will deploy this for you. So now you can run it again. Here you go. So you can see that hello from Lambda, training from Summit. Wow. Let's make it wow. One more. No, not here, but in the Lambda functions. Wow. So again, it's not deployed. So this is how you can change your code and deploy. Otherwise, you change your code in local and you can just upload it from here. Cool. Perfect. So far, we just understood the concept, like how a certain code can be developed and can be deployed on the Lambda on it through UI. There are multiple ways, keep in mind. But on the Lambda on a UI that I'll just shown to you, and this will be deployed and tested from the UI itself. Because let's say if I made something a full statement here, like in a DE, just DE, and then deployed this part. So this code is not working, to be honest. You'll run this part, it will fall into error. So test actually does make sense because it can quickly check if there is something wrong or not. So there's nothing wrong. You fixes all the issues, then you can test and confirm, and then only you can deploy that part, right? Cool. Now I'm coming to the next very interesting part here. So guys, please watch this video till end so that you can understand, because you just saw how to deploy, but you need to understand how the business use case is mapped with it. And there are multiple pinpoints that I wanted to add here, which is very much important. And people used to go and roam around like hours and hours in a video, and they do not get it to understand because I didn't add your dependency. Like, hey, if I say like, let's say import request, you know, request library, and I call it deploy again, and let's see if I call it run, it will fail because the request library is not in the module here. So that's why I'm saying, please stay with me. I'll show you like how these different libraries can be added in the dependencies, and you will be very much confident with the Lambda and to see the code working. Now, like I said in the shopping mall example, you can go ahead and write your code for that particular user to send a notification for extra voucher because he purchased a good amount of shopping with you. Now, going to the next on this part, what we should be doing out here is, we need to understand how to invoke this function. To invoke this function, there are multiple ways, and the one of the ways is add trigger. To call it add trigger, if you call it add trigger, it will come to this screen, and then like there are multiple ways you can do that, like Alexa, Kafka, API gateway, it's AWS IoT. There are n number of things, and there are event bridges down here. So there are n number of things that is here that you can trigger the Lambda functions. It's the same, like you develop a software, then you need to know how to invoke that software. So same way in Lambda, you have a functionality of code that you want to invoke. As I said initially, Lambda is an event-based structure. So you can define all sort of different events to different services across the Amazon environment, and then you can have the benefit to have Lambda. Like one of the example I can give you, you may heard of like AWS IoT or maybe Kinesis stream, maybe SNS, SQS, or S3 object. So what happens if you write some object to S3, it can create a event and then can trigger a Lambda function, which is just plug and play. Again, these are the topics which is my coming upcoming videos, because Lambda I want to cover just one basic functionality here, and I'll add a lot of videos here to understand each one of the details. Okay. Now coming to the point here, and for the sake of understanding in a better way and more used one, so let's make it an API gateway. So that's the API gateway, you got it, and the link, and then it gives these two choices. Go for the create a new API, and then REST API for now, and here you go. So now, if you call this REST API, there are three choices. Either go for IAM policy or you go for an open. Without security, that means an API key. So let me go for the open, and I call it an add here. So, Amazon is going to give you an URL endpoint. You can call that endpoint, and that will call your Lambda functions. Here is the point. Hello from Lambda training from Summit. Wow. So now the point is, the point I wanted to make out here is you just developed a code. You also get an endpoint to call that code. Isn't that beautiful? Because, like imagine you are developing some sort of software, you do some database data insert. So what do you normally do? You write an API and you call the code to send that data to API. API digests that information and maybe just persist that into database, MySQL, anywhere else, right? So that's the role. This is the entry key that you want to invoke from your software code. Now, like I said, this is a I have kept it open because I don't want to make an authentication right now. But this is not a good practice. Anybody can hit that. Even by watching this video, after this video, I will delete this because this can be used by any other people on the public internet, and they can use this API and hit my account multiple times. So post this video, I'll delete that. I'll just keep that in a note. And now moving to make a more secure call. And before doing that, let me delete this because I don't want to keep that for a longer run. So yeah, that is deleted. Let me close this out and now make a more authentic API. So I call it again add trigger, again call an API gateway here, call a new API. Let me scroll down a more REST API, and here you go. You call it API key. There is IAM also. So make an API key level, and here you go. You make an add here. Boom. Now your new API key is generated. And the best part of this API is if you hit this API, like I see, it's a forbidden. Whenever in the software industry you get a forbidden error, that means it's a 403 status code. That means it's not authorized, authenticated that you can make this call. You need a authentication to be done, and then only you can make this call. Now, how to make this call? I'll show you through code now. Here you go. So this is your endpoint, correct? So this is my endpoint. Let me copy this and I'll put you quickly in the editor. Guys, in my training, I use a lot of coding practices so that you can work along with me and learn these through live examples instead of going through multiple documentations. And this is definitely useful, but giving that example and stuff in one place would be great. Okay, I want to tell you that this is the API and this is my API key. So let's copy this part also. Here, I just want to select up to queue. So let me select this part only. Right click, copy. Here we go. And I replace this to queue. So, any Python developer will easily understand this code. This is a very simple code that I have written here. It has a request library and it has a URL, API key, headers, and it is making a print statement. It's calling this particular URL which we have just created, passing that API key in the header. Let's run this part. Boom. Hello from Lambda training from Summit. Wow. So you just learned how to develop a code which is secure because you have created an API key, because unless you send the right key, the code won't execute. You can also test this over the Postman because in a Postman you can define this key. Postman, like there's a light tool which easily can test your lot of endpoints. So many people, you must be knowing that. Hopefully I'll create one training on the Postman also. Now you can just go and hit this API and up and running. Up to here, everything is good. Now there are a couple of more good points I wanted to talk through these because that's also very important. Now when I click onto this part on the API gateway, I I came to this particular page, and let me scroll down a bit more. You define API key here, and here's the API key that will come up, which is a purchase notif key. And if you click on a show, it will show you the key. Again, this is confidential, so I'll delete this key post my training. But for now, it's okay. Now, understand again a great business use case. I want, like I said, please be with me throughout the video because I can tell you a lot of hidden point which people normally ignore. Let's say I give you an endpoint to develop in Python or in Java, any language that you're familiar with. And what about once you develop that code, I hit to that API with 1 million requests. I think your server may crash, may go down, I believe. So that's what this usage plans talks about. You have to restrict your API by defining how many requests that it can hit through. Like let's say somebody is using a Facebook account through creating a Facebook account through a code or something, and they can start hitting that request to Facebook, like say millions of requests per minute, then Facebook may get overwhelmed with all those requests and can have issues at the server because server will bottleneck. It's more like in a funny way, like there's a one manager in a software project and there are 1,000 people asking, hey, give me this answer. And the manager will go crazy. Hey, I can't give you because I'm kind of loaded with all your questions. Obviously, in people normally calls in the software industry is DDoS. So denial of service attack in a distributed fashion. Okay, cool. That were a couple of side items I just added, but coming to the point, here you can go and edit your throttling. We call technically this is a throttling. So you define, hey, I wanted to make this API only 10 requests per second, maybe 10 as a bus size. Make a quota as well, like I don't want to make 10,000 requests per month, and let's save it. Now, this will make sure the API that we have just developed through an API gateway here that you see this one, this cannot be called more than the given usage limit. This is very critical that if you go and understand this part, this is very critical, and then only you will get to know like what is the best part, the lambda that you are achieving. Now, guys, like I told you, if I go with this architecture and explain any of this Google architecture, these all are great and must be used a lot of places. But in my term, always try to understand in a in a sense for a software like why this software actually in the existence, what are actually they meant for, and when you're able to translate the business problem to a software solution, then only you can think in the right way and develop a right piece of code. That's the main intent I wanted to add here. Instead of talking a lot about Lambda, it talks this, it does that, I just straight dive it to the problem. And here's the one example I just showed to you. Now, I think for this video, this is good. And there are other videos I wanted to add, which I will cover about the layers and the destinations layers for just, I just give you the intro. Like I said, if I make a request library call here in the code, it will throw an exception to me. So I can show you again, like I showed you. Let's deploy, test. It will fail because the request library is not available. So to watch this next video, how the request library is coming into this Python piece of code, I'll show you in my Lambda AWS in the layer section, which is again a 5-minute video. Go and watch it and get the most out of this video and knowledge sharing. Thanks for watching, guys, and thank you very much for subscribing me. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe for my more videos. Cool, man. Thank you very much for your time.